Greetings, greetings. We are here. We are here. We're back in the lab. We're back in the lab. We are here. And again, we are going to do another Run Tell That. Always special. Special guests we have. Again, all our guests are always special. And tonight we have with us Dr. Kwesi DeGraff Hansen. He's in the house with us. He's here. Dr. Deidre Grim may be joining us. And as you all know, this is a special time of the year for all of us in this area that is in coastal Georgia, and that is tied to the Weeping Time that occurred March 2nd, March 3rd. And this is a part of American history right here, and that there are celebrations, commemorations that go on and take place. And to all you part of the Run Tell That family, we say share, share, share. Share, share, share. Share this, because again, activities going on this week. And so, my brother, Kwesi, this is what we throw out to people. Who are you? We ask the question all the time, everyone here who come on Run Tell That. Who are you? Let the people know who you are.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jamal. First of all, am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so very much for having me on your wonderful show. I appreciate it. So to your listening audience, again, my name is Kwesi DeGraff Hansen. I am a landscape architect by training, based in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Town called Beaufort, to be precise, 35 miles northeast of Atlanta. But Savannah is my second home. My wife is from Savannah. We come to Savannah all the time. I love Savannah. You all have a historic, wonderful city. It's also tied to my home city of Cape Coast, Ghana, in West Africa. So that's also part of my, I guess, my identification and identity. I am from Ghana, from the motherland, and been blessed to be here. Being blessed to have one foot here and one foot there, to be able to see how everything is connected. And it is my privilege and honor to be able to share what God has allowed me to know from both ends. And that is that it's very important for us to remember, respect, and commemorate these, our ancestors, because it's on their shoulders that we all stand. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. And so now we're going to ask this question. You put it out there. Again, you being from Ghana. So we're going to ask this question. Who are your people? Who are your people? Who are your people, Brother Kwesi? Who are your people?
Okay. Well, so, and I hope I'm answering this correctly, but I'm from the ethno-linguistic group, or the tribe, as people call it, called the Akan. Now, everybody has heard of Ashanti. I know that there's a musical artist called Ashanti, wonderful artist. Her name is taken from the Ashanti tribe. The Ashanti tribe is the biggest group of the Akan ethno-linguistic group. So there's a smaller group called the Fanti, F-A-N-T-E or F-A-N-T-I. Some people say it's a breakaway group from Ashanti, but mostly it's basically that, they one is on the exact coast and one is in the hinterland a little bit. So I'm an Akan, and the Akan are very, very well known throughout literature, especially when you talk about transatlantic slavery, because the Akan were brought, all over. So you've got Akan in Georgia, Akan in South Carolina, Akan in South America, Akan in the Jamaicas.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful names. And one of the things that I like about the research that we all do, Dr. Jamal and me, is the fact that these Africans, not just the Akan, but all these Africans, they left trails that we can follow. One of the trails for me happened to be this, and I know I might be jumping ahead, Dr. Jamal, but my name Kwesi actually means simply male born on Sunday in the Akan group. I thought nothing about it until actually when I got to America, some people said, oh, wow. So it means about 1/7 of all the males in your group are Akan, or at least are Kwesi, roughly. I said, you're right. But I found on some slave lists and slave people lists, going back to the 1790s, I saw my name on it.
Okay.
Slight misspellings. One of my daughters is called Abba. ABA means female born on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on the list, ABBAR. So it sounds the same, but just one or two letters.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I have a brother called Kweku. Many of you have heard of Kwaku. Many of you know some people called Kwaku. Kwaku means male born on Wednesday. So I see names like Quaka, Quaka.
Mm-hmm.
Many of you in Savannah area know Coffee.
Yep.
There's Coffees, there's Cujos, and those are all account names. So when I saw those names, I knew who they were. So as you say, Dr. Jamal, those are my people.
All
And
right.
those are people because they're all over.
And that is powerful because again, what you did, you helped the people again, showing those connections, those ties. And so we
Yes, sir.
and we're gonna throw this out there to you. Who inspires you or what inspires you? Who inspires you or what inspires you?
That's a great question. Who inspires me and what inspires me? Well, I guess I'd have to start with one of the very first people who inspired me was my great grandfather.
All right.
So this is my mother's grandfather, as a matter of fact. He was a praying man, and he was very, very, very big also about family and community. I remember that we used to vacation in his home. We lived in Accra, the capital of Ghana, but he
Yes.
lived in Cape Coast. And Cape Coast is where all African Americans, when you go to Ghana, I know you want to go to Cape Coast because
Yes. Yes.
that's where there's a touchstone there. That's where we've got, unfortunately, those slave forts and castles. Cape Coast Castle was not too far from my grandmother's house, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay.
But anyway, what I learned from my great grandfather was the importance of family and community. There were four generations that lived in his house. Again, his great grandfather, my grandmother lived in there, some of my aunts and uncles lived there, and the children lived there. I was one of the kids. Every day, if you lived in that house, regardless of whether you were a grandparent yourself or the great grandchild, every morning we had to go to the living room, get down on our knees, and pray.
Yes. All right.
He taught us the importance about prayer, the importance about community, and the importance of faith. So
Yes.
he is one of my inspiration. Then, of course, we've got all the great men and women, the African American leaders from Dr. King, going way back to Frederick Forsyth, to Sojourner Truth, to all the people that we read about. When I read their stories, Dr. Jamal, I am
Mm-hmm.
very humbled because we realize that these people, these men, women, boys, and girls,
Yes.
were
Yes.
tremendous, tremendous heroes.
Yeah, all right.
They,
Yes, sir.
they
Yes, sir.
had they
Yes,
had
sir.
faith, they had courage, they had determination, they had everything that every human would aspire to have. You mentioned the weeping time. When I
Mm-hmm.
think about a father looking at his son
Mm,
or his daughter,
mm.
knowing that he may be going to North Carolina and the daughter
Yeah.
may be going to Mississippi,
Yes.
what does he tell his daughter?
Mm,
But they
mm.
looked
Yes.
their kids in the eyes.
Yes.
They told
Yes.
them, "Be strong. If it is the will of God, I'll see you again. And
Yes.
if it is
Yes.
not what we've taught you, go with it and prosper with it." That's tremendous courage.
Mm. Yes, sir. Powerful, powerful, powerful.
Yes,
And the
sir.
last thing before we get into fully what we're talking about, the weeping time, what song or songs inspires you? What song give you that when you hear that song, it's like, oh, it's just you hear the song and you're like, yeah, we share it with our audience. And Reverend Betty Jones, glad to have you joining us. Reverend Betty Jones, one of the great supporters and one of the great supporters of the Weeping Time Coalition. And Brother
Yes.
Quasi, what song
Thank
gives you
you.
that? Give you that?
All right. Let me welcome also Reverend Betty Jones. Thank you for being here with us. Now, you had a good nerve. The song that just moves me is this song by Sam Cooke.
Oh,
Is a
oh,
yes, it's a
oh,
song that
oh.
basically, and I always forget the title, but it's a song
Yeah.
that says, "It's been a long time coming.
Uh-huh.
Change gonna come."
That's right. That's right.
I
This
love
is it.
I love
This is
that
it.
song because what that speaks to me is back then in Sam Cooke's time, he was looking ahead to this time. Now, they were looking for change. They were
Okay.
looking for change then, but we still need change now.
Right.
But that
Yes.
song is timeless. And
Okay.
whenever I hear it, first of all, it's beautiful music, beautiful melody, but it's also what it inspires in us. So
Okay.
thank you for asking that.
All right. And so, Brother Quasi, the Weeping Time, for the audience who checking out the show who may not know, what is the Weeping Time and what role do you play with regards to all this right here? What has happened that now, March 2nd, March 3rd, 1859? What is all that
Yes.
about?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. And to your listening audience, again, thank you for listening to this powerful show, this powerful professor that you all know, activist, everything. I'm glad to know Dr. Ture and glad that I'm his guest here. Well, Dr. Ture, as you said, what is the weeping time? Because there's some people who don't know it.
Yes, sir.
Let me start by saying this. I was at a function yesterday here in the Atlanta area. I was fortunate to have been invited by Savannah's own former state senator, Dr. Lester Jackson. I was
Okay.
invited. My wife and I were invited to the current lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia. He had an African American Black History Month reception. So
Yes.
we go. It was very powerful, and we thank him for that. I believe his name is Jones, Bert Jones. So we thank
Mhm.
Lieutenant Governor Jones for that. But here's what I found out. We were standing in the audience. They said, "Well, introduce yourself to people." So my wife and I were there. We introduced ourselves to a lady standing next to us. Turns out she's from Savannah. So my wife starts talking about the Weeping Time. She's
Yes.
never heard of the Weeping Time, and she's from West Savannah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
She's been living in Atlanta for some time, but she says she'd never heard of it. So we
Uh-huh.
shared it with her. Now, so to your listening audience, and I know many of them here already know about the Weeping Time, but for those who may not, or for all of us, we need to sort of retell ourselves.
Yes.
The,
Yes.
the, the Weeping Time is the name given to a period in time back in Savannah, 1859 to be precise, as Dr.
Hmm.
Tour said, March 2nd, March 3rd, 1859, when the largest slave sale that ever happened in American history happened. Now, if we
Yes.
watch our clocks and watch it, today is March the 1st. So
Yes.
tomorrow is the anniversary, first day of the slave sale. Tomorrow,
Yes.
March 1st, is 164 years to the day
Yes. Yes.
when this atrocious event happened, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Ture.
Yes, sir.
So what happened was, in a nutshell, about 436 people were listed in a slave sale catalog
Hmm.
published in Savannah in February of 1859 by a slave broker called Jonathan Bryan.
Yep.
And so he advertised 436 people. Ultimately, they brought 429 people to West Savannah to a former race course, horse
Yes.
racetrack um, in West Savannah. Some people will say, well,
Yep.
where in West Savannah? Well, if you know where Brock Elementary School sits, and you know where I-516 meets Augusta Avenue, and you may have heard of the former Barter Homes,
Yes.
or you
Hmm.
may know where the plywood company is.
Hmm.
It's now
Yes,
called,
sir.
I believe, Dixie Plywood. But that is where this happened. There was a huge, huge racetrack there. And so
Hmm.
these people were brought to Savannah, housed in horse stables for about a week, and
Mm.
sold.
Mm.
And what happened, why the name Weeping Time is because, of course, it was a very sad time. As we alluded to, parents having to separate from teenage children,
Yes.
so on.
Yes.
But, and this is a historical fact also, it rained. I've done the research and I found out that on March the 1st, which is exactly 164 years ago today, in the
Yes.
evening, Dr. Jamal,
Yes.
that
Yes.
night, it says the day, March the 1st, 1859, it was a sunny day. By
Yes.
that evening, it had
Okay.
started drizzling a little bit of rain here and there. By the morning of March the 2nd, it was full-blown rainstorm.
Okay.
The slave sale had been advertised to start on March the 2nd at 10 a.m. Well, it was so much rain that they pushed it back to 11 a.m. But still,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? They had made up their mind. There were people who had come from all over the Southeast,
Yes.
from
Yes.
Mississippi, from Alabama, from Tennessee, from all over Georgia, from North Carolina, from South Carolina. So the sale had to go on. And so
Yes.
essentially, um, it rained the 2 days. It rained all of March 2nd and all of March 3rd. And the historians say that, and eyewitness historians of that, they said that when the last person was sold on March the 3rd and stepped down off that auction block, the rain stopped,
Mm.
the skies cleared, and the sun came out. So the African Americans themselves, they deduced, they figured out, they knew it. They said, well, this was God weeping at this atrocity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how come the name that we know today came about. And I think it's a very apt wording and term, the weeping time, because you can imagine how the people felt. Now, the one person who wrote the account that has survived to this day, called Doe Sticks
Mm-hmm.
or Mortimer Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
well, he was a newspaper guy from New York. He actually wrote that the enslaved people didn't cry. So
Mm-hmm.
there was no outward tears,
Yes. Yes.
which again speaks to the courage and the strength that we talked about. However, we know that there was a lot of anguish and weeping on
Oh
the inside.
yes.
Of course,
Oh
that's not to
yes.
say anything about weeping. I weep a lot. um, but you know, they looked at each other and they said, we're gonna get through this. And you know, Dr. Jamal, one of the things that I say is this. Sometimes we all go through things and we don't know what's happening tomorrow, of course.
Right.
When these people were sold in 1859, they were on the brink of the American Civil War, and they didn't know it,
Right.
but it
Yes.
was sort of, so it was in 1861. So you had just, so they were just a couple of years away. And so I say this, that the tears that were shed at the weeping time became the river of freedom for those people.
Okay. All right. All right. We got you. We got you. And some of y'all saw that Dr. Deidre Grim had come in with
Yes.
Ivy Bay Development Community Development Corporation. There are activities going on. And Reverend Betty Jones, what I did, if you say you can't share it, if you're at Our Black Media, you should be able to share. But if not, I sent you a link that hopefully you can go and copy that and post that on your page so you can then have this shown if you have not been able to do that so far. But now we get into some other things with regards to, because again, there are some activities that you all have going on. Brother Quasi,
Mhm.
Dr. the Graf Hansen. What are
Yes.
some activities you have going on?
Okay, very good. And first of all, again, thank you so much for mentioning the programs that we're doing, as well as Ivory Bay. There's a festival. I know Dr. Deidre will talk about that. So I'll share what we've got going on. So tomorrow, our program starts tomorrow, March the 2nd, which is an anniversary, as we've talked about. And it goes all the way through Monday, March the 6th. So let me take it one by one. So tomorrow we'll be at the Beach Institute from 5:30 p.m. till about 8 o'clock. So that's the opening event. This year, when we started talking, we thought one of the most important things was to focus on genealogy, because we talk about the weeping time itself, and I've been so impressed that really what we're all doing, Dr. Jamal, all of us who have anything to do with weeping time, we are actually reversing a curse.
Okay.
And I know. Here's the thing: when people were sold and scattered, okay, it goes against, it really goes against what families try to do. We stay close. So when the people were dispersed, sold and dispersed, um, of course it was atrocious. It affected so many families. So now what we're doing, whether we know it or not, we're regrouping, we're gathering the people coming back.
Okay.
So we focus on genealogy because people want to know. Some people want to know that they are connected to this important time in American history. And some people don't know. And that, I think, is one of the most unfortunate things, to not know that we're part of this type of history. Though it's not the kind of history we want to know, or we celebrate. Um, like I said, we can celebrate the strengths and the power and the courage that we talked about. So anyway, and I know I digress. So
No problem. No problem.
we decided to focus on genealogy. So tomorrow, the Beach Institute will be talking about the genealogy of the Weeping Time. That is the
Yes.
people that were
Yes.
involved,
Okay.
as well as a little bit about place. As we know, genealogy is about tracing lineage,
Mm-hmm.
who begat who, and so on.
Right.
And so we'll talk about that. And I'm very happy to say this. All of your listening audience who can, please make it to tomorrow's event at the Beach Institute. Here's why. We have some people who have found out that their descendants tied to the Weeping Time. I don't want to mention their names, but let me just say this. One lady and her daughter drove all the way from New Jersey. They've traced themselves to the people who were sold in Savannah at the Weeping Time. They're
Okay.
already in Savannah. They beat me to Savannah. A couple of days ago, I called. They're like, I said, "Are you in New Jersey?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Where are you?" She said, "We're in Virginia. We're on the road."
Nah. Okay.
Okay, so they'll be there. We'll have people talk about the genealogy. Then on Friday morning, which is also an anniversary day, March the 3rd, we will be at the Otis J. Brock III Elementary School in West Savannah. As you know, the school sits squarely in the Weeping Time footprint. The former horse racetrack envelopes the site that the school is on.
All right.
So it's a very historic school. So anyway, we'll be there. We'll be talking to the kids, fourth and fifth grades. So this is an attempt to talk to the children. Sometimes we think, well, they're too young to know. And of course, it has to be judiciously dealt with. But it's important that they know, being that they are in this historic school. So from 10:30 to 11:30 on Friday, we'll be there at the school. And then from 1 o'clock to 2:30, we're fortunate to be the guests of Dr. Ture at the Gullah Geechee Center at Georgia Southern University's Armstrong campus. So we will be
Yes.
coming to share with faculty, staff, and students there. And thank you so much, Dr. Ture, for hosting us on that. We're looking forward to that. Now, then on Friday afternoon, the people in Darien, Butler Island is right next to Darien. Butler Island is where half of the people who are brought to Savannah and sold came from. The other half came from St. Simon's Island. So we're going to Butler Island because they're doing a candlelight event. For the past 2 years, they've been setting out solar lights. I said candlelight, but solar lights. They put them out there on Butler Island. They have 436 of them. And at dusk or twilight, it is beautiful to see these lights coming on. Very, very spiritual, very
Okay.
touching. Their mayor will be there. McIntosh County folks will be there. So those of you who can come from Savannah, please support them as well, because again, we're sister cities and we're all in this together. So now I'll speed it up. So Saturday morning, we're back at Brock Elementary School from 10 to noon. That is for hopefully our main event. In the past, we've had all the men and women, the mayor, whoever comes, school board, the general public. And again, that's where we try and share the history, and there'll be some descendants there as well. It's a time for us to remember them And sometimes we think, well, it's so long ago, or it's not that long ago, or we think we want to just get over with this sort of sad stuff. And it's, it is sad, but again, as I keep stressing, we can find strength in those people. And so we're not looking for the sadness. We need to connect with our sadness because that's how we grow and that's how we also heal. But we need to look past that to the strength that we can get from those folks. So then, I know on Saturday afternoon, there's a Weeping Time Festival. So I'm not going to steal Dr. Deidre's thunder. She'll talk about that. On Sunday, I know that there are services. Pastor Larry Gordon and his church, they're having a Weeping Time service. There's also a Weeping Time service also in Darien, the afternoon of Sunday, at one of the oldest structures built at St. Cyprian's Church in Darien. That's where former butler slaves, when after emancipation, they actually went to Darien and built this church. It still stands. And if any of you have not been to Darien, have not seen the St. Cyprian's Church, please go and check it out. Then on Monday, the last event so far will be at Savannah State University at the Asa H. Gordon Library. They have also invited us, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing, talk about the genealogy of people and place. Now, I have to say this. I want to go back to Dr. Turi and your invitation to us on Friday. One of the things that we want to focus on is more of the genealogy of place than the genealogy of people. And what do I mean by that? Everything has an origin, as we know. There was a time when Savannah was not Savannah, and it was the place where Native, or I should say, Indigenous Americans lived. So there's a genealogy of place also, how places change, how places have different names. And so I will attempt to talk about the genealogy of the Weeping Time site as we know it. We all know that there's been controversy about the site, especially because Salvation Army has purchased a portion of the site. And, some people say this is not part of it, this is part of it, all that. So I will do my best to expound on that, looking at some maps and looking at some of the research that we've all been privileged to do. So thank you so much for that. Thank you very much.
And what we're going to do, we're going to go to a commercial because we have our sister, Dr. Deidre Grim, and come back. We're going to let her now go and discuss with you the Weeping Time African Unity Festival and what is being done by the Ivy Bay Community Development Corporation. Again, we take a short commercial. We're coming right back and we say share, share, share. Run, tell that.
Thank you.
And we are back. Run tell that with Dr. Kwesi DeGraff Hanston and also Dr. Deidre Grim, Ivy Bay. She's no stranger to Run Tell That and to you all in the community. And glad to have you here, sis. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. As you all can see, I'm in my mobile office, as everybody else calls it.
Yes. And as our president of Our Black Media would say, that she should not be in her vehicle, but then I have no control over that. That's not on me. That's not on me. So, Dr. Deidre Grim, you all also have an event that has been going on annually with regard to the Weeping Time African Unity Festival. Can you share the audience what that is about?
Sure. Thank you again, brother. And I appreciate you, Dr. Queasy, for your dedication to this research of about and surrounding the weeping time. So, for the last 4 years, we have put on the annual African Unity Festival. The first 2 years we were on the Bartow property behind Brock Elementary. And when COVID set in, we had to pivot. So we were
Mhm.
at the lot on Bay Street across from the Dollar General because we were just so, for lack of better terms, heck bent on making sure that our community understood what our culture looked like, and really being able to help drive Black business and uh, create opportunities and space for organizations, and give our people resources that they may not necessarily get. So just in thinking of it, our Alderwoman Lanier, who is the founder of Ivory Bay, saw that this could be some form of atonement for the atrocity, the weeping time,
Mhm.
because we want to ensure that there is economic justice in these low wealth communities and corridors. And so she was the visionary behind it. And so I came on year two, and then we just continued to run with it from that. And as you can see on the flyer, our theme this year is fighting to preserve our Gullah Geechee heritage, because even in 2023, we're still having to fight to take what's rightfully ours and to really own it. And so, as Dr. DeGraff just said, the history and the genealogy of place, and what the Weeping Time property is, and the controversy around it. We're still in that fight, and we're not going to let up and give up on that fight.
All right, absolutely powerful statement. And
Very
Reverend Betty Jones also shared in the chat and put it's on the site also on our page that with regard to the meetings that are held regarding the Weeping Time Coalition, and they meet 4 p.m. and they meet at Solomon's Temple Church in West Savannah, or passed by Reverend Larry Gordon. So again,
Mhm.
this is something that's been an ongoing onslaught with regards to our story for people not knowing is of the Quincy when it's indicated people from Savannah who are in Atlanta not knowing anything about it. Reverend Betty Jones, when we held a session, one of our crack tea sessions, she talked about how she didn't know anything about it at all. She went to school here in Chatham County, and other people, various range of people from adolescents on up, not knowing anything about this and that. Now it's crucial for us, and with regard to the work that all of you are doing right now. And at the Georgia Southern event, we tell people come out. Come out because it's going to be at room 107 in the Armstrong Center. That's going to be from 1 to 2:30. Tell folks come out, check it out, and engage in the conversation. Because Brother Quacy and I had a conversation. I said that some people are saying that that's not the property. That's what some people are
Mhm.
saying. And I know that he's been involved in this intimately, and they're looking at some other maps. They're looking at
Mhm.
maps that are not, they're not looking at the older maps. The older maps indicate it
Right.
is the property. But then the newer maps go on and say it's not. And so, Brother Quasi, can you talk to that? And then we have you, Dr. Deidre Grim, also share any input on that also?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, Dr. Deidre, thank you so much for what you shared. Very powerful. Thank you also, Reverend Betty. And of course, thank you, Dr. Jamal. So, back to this issue about the site. And I'll give more insight when I am able to show the maps at
Right.
Savannah,
Yes.
sorry, at your campus. But essentially, this is the gist of it. From the research I have done, I remember one of the very first maps that I saw. Um, the whole site from Augusta Avenue down to the railroad tracks was part of the Weeping Time site. Now, I have not found a map that. Well, let me take a step back. One of the things that I remember finding was that um, the whole site was sold in 1872, okay, to the Georgia Agricultural and Mechanical Association. All that land was sold in 1872. I also do know that, and I found information that shows that in 1857, that's 2 years before the Weeping Time, 1857, that land was bought by Lamar, the guy who's responsible also
Yes.
for the Wanderer. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Lamar buys the bottom portion where the racetrack is or was in 1857. His wife or his widow, Carolyn Lamar, sells all that land in 1872. And there's a plat that shows it from Augusta Avenue all the way down there's a racetrack on one, sorry, railroad tracks on one side, railroad tracks on the bottom side. The whole site she sold the whole site. Now, what I did not find was when, and so I assumed that they owned it all from 1857. Apparently, that's not the case, right? But at some point, they owned both of it. Now, the maps that I found, even going back to, they were all in the 1870s, showed a pathway crossing from Augusta Avenue across the entire track down to where the racetrack was. And again, I'll show this on maps. What that tells me is this, that either the racetrack owner also owned the land up at the top, or even if he didn't own it, he had permission from the owner for his patrons to use it, correct?
Right.
You can't walk across a hostile person's property. That's one. And then his wife or his widow sells it in 1872, which means at some point he acquires it, and there's a plat that shows all of it. Okay. I think what is going on in Savannah is splitting hairs.
All right. Okay.
Okay, that's all what it is. Now, it's very possible that the gentleman acquires, as Charles Lamar acquires the racetrack portion in 1857. And I believe from what I know right now, he acquires the other portion closer to Augusta Avenue a couple of years later, maybe in the 1860s, 1862, 1864. In fact, the document that was produced by a company that was hired by, I believe, City of Savannah, they said they found the first record that Lamar's owned it was in the 1860s something. So you're talking just a few years after the Weeping Time. What they did not say, and I'll say it here.
All right.
That company could not say that that land was not part of Weeping Time site. They could not say that. You can, you're a professor. You can make conjectures, right? If we don't know something, we can say, I don't know. And like I say, I don't know when exactly Lamar may have bought the other site. He may have bought it in the same year he bought the bottom part, 1857. The fact that we don't find a document attesting to that does not mean that he did not own it. Correct? Now, sometimes when you look at it logically, someone will say, because I didn't find it, it didn't happen. For instance, Dr. Torre, you were born at a certain time and there's a birth certificate that attested to your birth.
Right.
If I'm looking for when you were born, I don't find your birth certificate.
Right.
That does not mean that you were not born.
Right. Exactly.
It just means that I did not find it or have not found it yet. But yes. I cannot definitively and emphatically make a statement that Dr. Ture was not born because I don't see his birth certificate.
Right.
And I think what's happening with the Weeping Time site is this. One, no one has yet found that document as to when this was actually purchased, the top part. That does not mean that, again, he did not purchase in 1857. It just means it's not being found. Now, this is my position. Let's even assume that when the weeping time happened in 1859, that Charles Lamar did not own the northern part of it. Let's just say that. Let's say, and I don't know that for a fact, nobody knows it. But even if he didn't own it, the fact that people were coming across that land to the site that he owned means that those two sites are tied together,
Yes.
that they're historically related, historically entwined, right? Now, when you look at historical sites, let's take Civil War sites.
Dr. DeGraff. Now we're gonna definitely want to try to get Dr. Grimm in here. Now, that's why I just
Okay, all right, all right. So then I think I'll wrap it up with that, and maybe
right,
when we get to the maps, we'll see. But basically, this is my position. When you have two contiguous pieces of property, this one and this one, and one is historic, and you say this one's not historic, I can do whatever I can. That's not appropriate, because when you have a historic site like Gettysburg, or a historic site like Auschwitz in Poland, where the Jews were, where the Holocaust happened, you cannot tell me that you can build a homeless shelter, or you can build a coffee shop, or you can build anything that does not tie to the historicity of that Auschwitz. They won't allow it. Yes. Even here in America, we will not allow it. We will not allow it on the Civil War battlefield. I cannot go to Washington and say I want to build a homeless shelter on the White House lawn.
Okay.
No, we can say the White House is where the president lives. The White House lawn is not part of the White House. That's the argument that's being made in Savannah.
Okay.
And
great point.
And Dr. Kwesi brings up a very good point, right? It shows that there is more value in white land as opposed to what should be considered a black asset. Here we have, urban renewal. If we fast forward, come straight through the community to divide it, because white flight, people want to leave the city to get away from black folks, right? And then now when it's in a process of this land is valuable and the area is gentrifying, unfortunately, then it comes to this place where we can dictate what goes here, and therefore the validity of your claim is moot. And that doesn't, that's happening historically around the country. We're seeing places that are, originally black owned. I'll give you the story. I grew up in Charleston when the Septima Clark Freeway came straight through the community, and how it totally changed the dynamic of the community. But we don't sit up here and put those same emphasis on areas that are very valuable in our history and our story, to ensure that this next generation can accurately depict and tell these stories going forward. So it's almost like you say, Dr. Jamal, it's an erasure of our history, an erasure of those landmarks, because while there is a lot of pain tied to it, it's also this notion of picking and choosing what history is also important, and all history is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to share this with you all, to the audience in particular. Now, I'll share this with our Caucasian viewers, that especially those who are Confederate reenactors. You should be involved in this struggle with regard to the Weeping Time property and about it being respected. Now, some of y'all probably say, wait a minute, what did he just say? He just said Caucasian viewers who are Confederate reenactors, that they should be interested in preserving the property. But what has been projected, that this is a Black history thing right here. Well, we've said it's American history. So now let y'all know this. During the Civil War, what happens when you now begin to look at that Georgia's now, especially this area right here, is not going to be under Union control, that protections were provided by, or a place of sanctuary was provided by the Timbrook Race Course. The very
Wow.
race course that had just had black people sold at now became a safe haven for Caucasian women and children for the Confederacy during the Civil War here in Savannah.
Wow.
So now to give you all some backdrop with regards to this, what was the name of the public housing development over there? What's the name again? Dr. Quace, you said it earlier. It's just
Bartow. Yes,
Bartow,
Bartow.
named for Francis Bartow. Anyone understand what's up with Francis? Francis Bartow was a Confederate officer. So what's going on? It was still about the legacy. They understood
Yes.
that when they're going to put a public housing development that was over there, they know that land was tied to the Confederacy. They know
Yes.
it's tied to their story. So that's why the public housing development in part was named Bartow Homes. They were
Homes.
still
Yes.
latching on to legacy. So that's why I say to Confederate reenactors and Caucasians out there, when you want to talk about this story, you all standing on the sideline just watching and thinking that's something black. No, it's not. This is American story right here that pertains to even to some of your ancestors, if you are truly about having the pride. But I know that some of y'all just speak it. We're not really about it. So that's why I threw out there, and I told people, I had a conversation with someone earlier today. I said that I shared this like over 10 years ago. That's tied to the Confederacy also. But guess what? Nobody's standing up and speaking up about that part because, again, that goes to show you how we don't know history. We don't
Yes.
respect history. So here go all people who say they respect history. None of them, black folks, Caucasian, none of them really respecting history. You want to have something over there that's not fitting for the community. And then also you talk about having pride in your ancestors and that the South should rise again. Guess what? You ain't got no pride because you let somebody go and destroy it. So I just got to throw that out there and say, because the work that y'all have been doing, both of you doing that again, that many people should be joining y'all with regards to this right here. That it shouldn't just be African American. It should be every concerned person or anybody who has an interest in history and culture and development. Everybody should be involved in this. So I'm throwing Dr. Deidre Grim. What's your thoughts with regards to any of this? And then we're going to go to you, Dr. DeGraff Hansen.
Okay.
Can you read that part? I'm so sorry. My phone was
I'm
going
just saying,
out.
what I had just shared.
Well, like I was at the school board.
Then we're gonna move on to Dr. Quincy DeGraff.
Okay, I'll make it quick while we get her audio back. So, Dr. Jamal, what you just dropped is so very powerful and might actually, I believe, be the kingpin to solving this situation. What you just said is so true. I did know about Bartow, know that he's a Confederate a general, but I did not know that women and children were housed in the racetrack. You see, that goes back to what I was talking about, the genealogy of land and place, where land is layered. There was one time when this same site was maybe a campment for indigenous Americans, right? Then it becomes a plantation because that whole area was part of a plantation. Okay. Then it becomes a racetrack. Then it becomes this. In fact, here's the other thing. I also drop another piece of history. The name for that racetrack, the historical name was Oglethorpe Track.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, though I don't know for a fact, first of all, it means it's tied to the person who is credited for starting this state of Georgia.
Right.
General Oglethorpe. It's very likely that he starts that first track because before it was called the Ten Brock Race Course. It used to be called Jenks Track. Before it was Jenks Track, it was called Oglethorpe's Track. What are the chances that General Oglethorpe rode horses on there? So that's historicity. That's history. So you've got these layers upon layers, right? So you're not just erasing, as you said, Dr. Jamal, you're not just erasing African American history of the Weeping Time. You're erasing the Confederate history. You're erasing Native American history. You're erasing revolutionary history. You're erasing founders' history. And so it's very important for us to realize that all this is layered. Now, somebody can argue that, well, every space is layered. That's true. But not every space is layered with the same level of history or intensity. So a Civil War battlefield is definitely different from an agricultural field that has always grown just rice or let's say corn. Okay, so I think that what you dropped, Dr. Jamal, is where this battle needs to go. We have to link arms with people to realize that this is for all people. Thank you.
And when it comes down to it, actually, I'm throwing it out there to them because, like I said, they have sat on the sideline and just been silent and not even knowing their own story. So I'm throwing out there now and say they need to, and actually, they need to come to us and say, "Hey, listen, we need to join you all." And that's what is going on. And like I said, and there are people who know this right here, and they have intentionally sat silent with regards to this and just making say it's a black matter. No, it's not. If you really love history, really into history, then you know it is about all our story right here. So Dr. Grim, anything you want to just add, share, because again, we put it out there because again, trying to provoke some people now, because that's what this is about, provoking people to not stand up and speak out. What?
Yes.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out why they got to throw up the flyer on my face all the time. Why they got to do that? Why it's like, oh my God, it's like all the producers disrespect me all the time. Everybody, that was it. Run Tell That is the Little Brother show, all the ATR shows. I mean, I'll like me the shows, but go ahead, Dr. Grim. Oh Lord, I'm just going to take it.
No, you're right. I think we definitely need to ensure that we are being very thoughtful in every aspect and what the replications or the implications can be even for those civil rights activists, the Confederate activists, because this will tell the president that, history does not matter, and so therefore it could come to this place where everyone starts choosing what they want to do. There was a comment that was very disheartening to me in reference to the property itself, and just thinking about the context around it. I'm not going to repeat the statement, but there are things that are said that can be seen very insensitive and unthoughtful when it comes to specifically all history, because like you said, our history is the nation's history. But I also think when we come to this space of having accomplices in this work, we need this, to move it forward, because we can't do the heavy lifting. I was taught that dismantling racism is not for us to do. It's actually for the Caucasians to speak to their counterparts to address those issues. And so it's in the same vein that they need to assist us in continuing to save and preserve the Weeping Time property, because it is there for, as in my eyes, can be an asset for the whole community. Just like we have the African American museum in DC, we could have the same thing here to cultivate that story. And so we should be very cautious because of the precedents that we could set with not being very thoughtful and intentional about the choosing and picking of history. But can I say something else around something else, Dr. Jamal?
All right, y'all give you 1 minute because the producers already trying to let me know that they got to go to their other show. Like I said, the Little Brother show. So I'll give you a minute, and then Dr. Gurab Hanson, we're going to give you a minute also.
Okay.
They tell me 3 minutes. They tell me 3 minutes. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry again for your viewership. I'm sorry that I was late. We had some things going on, but we want to utilize the Weeping Time African Unity Festival as a conduit to grow and extend community, to engage communities, for our people to know and all of Savannah to know about the issues that are befalling the community. And so we're just here to have a good time and commemorate and memorialize those who were sold, unfortunately, on March the 2nd and 3rd of 1859. But we should also be able to utilize that pain to create a driver, some options for our people, because we always, as people, repurpose our pain. That's how we always push through things. And so I would just want to invite everyone to come out Saturday, March the 4th from 11 to 3. We will have live entertainment. We will have music. We will have dancing. We have African drumming. We will have activities for the kids. And of course, we will have the also special and phenomenal Dr. Teray emceeing our
Yes.
event as usual.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Dr. DeGraff, you have a minute, and because the producer's going to cut us off.
Yes. Well, first of all, let me start by saying thank you, Dr. Toure, for inviting me and giving us this audience. Thank you, Dr. Grim. Very well spoken, very, very articulate, and great work that you all are doing. I'm glad that we're all doing this work together. And it's very important also. The one thing I also say is anybody in the listening audience, make it a point to go to any of these events, the events all over the place, because every time we share, we learn, and it's also important about unity. And I want to even address this thing that Dr. Tur, you mentioned. This weeping time is not about a white thing. Dr. Grim, you also mentioned it. It's not a black thing. It's all of us. American history is American history. It may have a tinge here that looks like it's more African American or more Caucasian American, but it's American history. History is woven together like 3 or more strands. When you've got a rope, it's woven together, it's entwined. The land itself, as we said earlier, different cultures have lived on it, camped on it, schooled on it. So we've got to look at it together. And so I think that that's, again, the best way to move forward. All of us realize that this is a historic site and do what we can to preserve it. Again, thank you very much to your audience and you.
And to all of y'all, we say thank you for joining us for Run Tell That with Dr. Deidre Grim and Dr. Kwesi DeGraff Hansen. Taking all the events, and the information is out there. We'll be sharing further with you all what's going on. This has been Run Tell That. We see y'all next week, because the producers are trying to shut it down right now. They already, the little brother show. They done told me 10 seconds. So,
thank you, Dr. Deidre. Thank you, Dr.
We see y'all. Love y'all. Peace and blessings. We see y'all this weekend.